To our first interview today, first of many today. Attorney General Keith Ellison was available here at the top of the hour, so we wanted to chat with him because he wanted to share some of his thoughts and memories of Melissa Hortman, which we can't lose sight of here. We really need to keep talking about the victims and their legacies and their lives. Thank you for joining us, Attorney General.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for keeping the memory of Melissa Hortman alive. She was a tremendous human being. She was pragmatic. She was passionate. She was all those things, and she kept together a caucus. And if anybody's ever been in politics, you have a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, and she kept them all together and did great things for the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I want to hear some stories. I know you've had probably a lot of interactions with her over the years. Yeah. Hopefully you can share some. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say when I met her, she was not yet in the legislature. She was a legal aid lawyer, and she was representing tenants. And I remember she and I had, when I was the director of the Legal Rights Center, representing the same person, and she did tremendous legal work and protected a vulnerable tenant, a mom of three, who had been subject to some pretty disgusting sexual harassment, and yet she took that case and she fought for that individual and won justice for them. I knew she'd be a great legislator. And I can tell you that personally, I personally have asked her to run for Congress. She said no. I want to be in the state of Minnesota. I want to stay home. But over the time, we saw that she could do anything, go anywhere she wanted in politics, but her preference was to be right here in Minnesota. So I commend her for that. Right up until a few days ago, she and I were talking about the budget, talking about the Attorney General's office, and she, no matter how busy she always had time to connect with us and try to help us through and make sure that we had the resources we need to, protect and defend the people of the state of Minnesota. So she was a true champion, and so many times, so many occasions, she stepped up and did the right thing.
Yeah, you just mentioned the budget, and I think some of the last and lasting images and video that we have from sound that we've shared here in our newscasts is as that special session was finishing up, and we saw Speaker Emerita Hortman in tears, which I'm told was rare, right, if ever. Did she share with you at all in those conversations? And if you're not comfortable sharing, it's okay. But it clearly, she had a very, very difficult vote to make, and it tore her apart. You could see it. Did she talk to you at all about that time?
Well, we talked about the difficulty with that vote in particular because she believes that everybody ought to be able to get the health care that they need. She desperately believes in that and earnestly believes in it, fought for it. But then when it came down to how to resolve that budget, she understood there was a path forward, and she did what leaders have to do, which is sometimes disappoint the very people who they're fighting for every single day. But I know that in Melissa's mind, she knew that there'd be another day, and she'd be able to come back and fight for those same people all over again. But the budget needed to get passed. This was the deal that could be struck. And so she did the hard thing, and she was about doing the hard thing. But let me tell you, when she could do things, great things for people, she always did it. She never missed that opportunity. She believed in kids having a full meal and that kids learn best when they're well fed. She believed, that we needed to have child care credit in our state. She believed people need family medical leave on the job. She believed in these things and she fought for these things. But then when the budget was tight and things got tough, she did the right thing, and she did the best thing she could do even in that moment when the options were much more limited.
Yeah. We've heard a lot over the course of the last couple of days from people who, lawmakers, those in public service saying it's time to tone down the rhetoric. It is time to bring down the temperature. And what strikes me about both Speaker Emerita Hortman and Senator Hoffman is that from just my own personal experience, and maybe you can speak more to this, but there really weren't two people who were more sort of cordial, diplomatic, kind,
very true.
fair. I mean, if you just want to talk to that for a moment.
Well, yeah. So John is another one who was a great lover of bipartisan cooperation. He in his committees he tried. John Hoffman is a man who's really concerned about mental health issues, worked passionately and across the aisle to help people who suffer from mental health and mental illness. Is a tireless champion on that, and Melissa Hortman is another one. When some people might, say the inflammatory thing, she would walk past that. And this is not to say that she did not hold passionate views and stick up for those views. She really did. No one can say that she was not a passionate advocate for her point of view, but she always understood that there was a person on the other end of that conversation, and that's why she was able to have what looked like a very good relationship with Speaker Demuth, who it appeared she personally said very kind things about Speaker Demuth to me when it was just she and I. So she admired her and recognized that she was a good leader too. So this is the person that she was, and I'm gonna miss her, and all of us will.
Moving forward, Attorney General Ellison, will this change, what you say and how you say it publicly?
Well, again, I've always, been one to try to bring us to the better place, but we're all passionate advocates for the beliefs that we hold. But the problem here is that somebody picked up a weapon and went to a person's home at 3 o'clock in the morning and murdered them. Those of us who believe that our political differences should be solved either by compromise or an election are completely different in kind from this kind of behavior. So this is the kind of thing that we should understand. I don't think it's appropriate to ask somebody who's elected to represent a certain point of view to not represent that point of view. But it is important to understand that in America, in Minnesota, we resolve our differences through compromise in courtrooms, or we do it in places at election time, never with guns. That is not the way that matters are solved in our country, and never should be, and have no place at all.
Is there some room, though, to sort of improve upon, name calling and sort of general categorization of people? And is there some room for that?
Well, ma'am, obviously there's room for us all to, try to call people to higher ground. But I think that you're mixing up one thing and another if you forget the fact that this was a murder by a murderer, that it happened 3 o'clock in the morning. The man went to John Hoffman's house in a mask. He shot his way into the Hortman home. This is not political discourse. This is not even tough political discourse. This is murder. This is homicide. This is different. And so if you ask me, should we all aim for calling each other to the higher place, even in our passionate arguments? I say, of course we should. But we can't conflate that with this situation.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a disservice to do so.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's important to not normalize this. That's one of the most important things that we can do out of this. I think to make, as people, citizens of Minnesota are looking at this, I think a lot of people look at each other and say, well, this is the time we live in. And so I asked you that to sort of intentionally
and I agree with that.
The two.
Yeah, and I think that, and I agree with that sentiment. We cannot just dismiss this as the times that we live in. And let me tell you, in the 1960s, we saw John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, and many others. And we all recognized that this had to stop. And we can't go back to an era in American history where political assassination is a common thing. It's got to stop. This is the best place to stop. And if anybody is an example of how we should comport ourselves politically, it is Melissa Hortman, because she was a passionate advocate for children, for workers, for people, and she would never not be that advocate. She was that advocate, but she was always willing to reach her hand out and find a way forward with her political, with different people in politics. And she never saw the Republican caucus as her enemy. She saw them as the party opposite, who carried a legitimate point of view that many Minnesotans hold, but we're all Americans. We're all Minnesotans, and we can never lose sight of that. We can never lose sight of that.
Yeah, a lot of people who have known her for years are hoping that her legacy will be that others will be more kind, and that the temperature can come down and act as though she would have acted. I just, before I let you go, we really appreciate you coming on and your time, and you know, you made it really clear you didn't want this to be about you. You wanted this interview to be about Melissa Hortman and what's been going on. But I do need to ask you, on Saturday you did speak at the No Kings protest after the governor had said, please don't go to this. You were the only one to go. So I wanted to find out why.
Well, I wholeheartedly support the decision of the governor, lieutenant governor, and others to not go. We cannot possibly risk the top of our state, and they did the very right thing, the thing I would advocate. But on the other hand, I felt that somebody, at least one of us, should go to be with the people in this grieving moment. But the governor was busy trying to catch this killer. The governor was very occupied, and he needed to focus on what he was doing. And I needed to do what I could do to lend comfort in that moment. I wanted to remind people about who Melissa was. I wanted to remind them about the legacy that she leaves, which is one of nonviolent social change. I also wanted to remind people that in the course of human events, martyrs and great leaders, sometimes we lose them, but if the cause is just and right, others carry on and they pick up the mantle. And people, I'm reminded people where we lost Martin Luther King in 1968, but people kept on fighting for civil rights and human dignity, and they didn't stop that because an assassin came forward and tried to intimidate people. And I urge people now to stay on the path of democracy, justice, and a rededication to nonviolent social change.
We appreciate your time today. I know you need to get going. Thank you for coming on and sharing your memories and for being open to answering some of our questions here today. Our condolences to you and all of those who knew Representative Hortman so well. Thank you, Attorney General Ellison.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.
Right.
Have a good day.
Yep, you too.